The sound of a plate shattering against the diner floor cut through the cheerful Christmas music like a scream in the night. Conversations stopped, forks froze mid-air, and in the middle of the crowded, brightly decorated diner, a young waitress stood trembling, her hands empty, her eyes shining with humiliation as her manager's voice echoed louder than the carols playing overhead. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the smallest act of compassion can rewrite someone's entire future. It was Christmas afternoon, the kind where sunlight poured generously through wide windows, reflecting off red ornaments and tinsel garlands. Families filled every booth, children in sweaters decorated with reindeer, parents exchanging tired but grateful smiles. The world outside looked peaceful, soft, and golden under the winter sun. Inside, the diner buzzed with warmth and noise, a temporary shelter from loneliness. Her name was Maren Whitlock. She couldn't have been older than 24. Her brown hair curled gently around her face beneath a small lace headband, and her uniform, though simple, was worn neatly. There was something about her smile that felt real, not rehearsed like the others. It carried a quiet resilience, as if she had practiced being strong long before she ever carried a tray. I had come in alone that day. My sister had canceled Christmas dinner at the last minute after a family disagreement, and I couldn't bear the silence of my apartment. I told myself I was just there for coffee and a slice of pie, but truthfully, I was there to feel less alone. Maren had been my waitress. She moved quickly, balancing heavy trays with practiced grace. I noticed how she treated every table as if they were guests in her own home, kneeling slightly to speak to children, laughing gently at awkward jokes, making sure elderly couples had their coffee topped off without being asked. Even with the diner packed to the brim, she radiated patience. Then it happened. A man at a nearby table snapped his fingers impatiently. He was loud from the moment he walked in, complaining about wait times despite the obvious holiday rush. When Maren rushed over to refill his drink, another server accidentally brushed her elbow. The tray tilted. A plate slipped. It shattered near the man's polished shoes. The diner fell silent. The manager, a sharp-faced man named Clyde Dorman, stormed out from behind the counter. He didn't lower his voice. He didn't consider the room full of children. He didn't consider that it was Christmas. His words were harsh and public, slicing through the fragile dignity Maren had left. He accused her of incompetence, of costing the diner money, of embarrassing him in front of customers. She tried to apologize. She bent down to clean the shards with shaking hands. But Clyde didn't stop. Finally, in a tone colder than the winter outside, he told her to take off her apron and leave. She was fired. On Christmas Day, no one spoke. I watched her stand there, eyes wide, cheeks flushed, the lace headband trembling slightly as she pulled off her apron. It felt wrong. Not just unfair, but deeply wrong. She had been working non-stop for hours while most of us were there by choice. As she reached for her coat, something in me refused to stay seated. I stood up and walked toward her before I could second-guess myself. The diner watched. My heart pounded louder than the music overhead. I didn't plan what to say. I just knew silence would make me complicit. I told her quietly, but firmly, that she deserved to be treated better than this. The words weren't dramatic. They weren't poetic, but they were honest. She looked at me, as if she hadn't heard kindness in a long time. Her composure cracked, just slightly. Not into tears, but into relief. The kind that comes when someone finally acknowledges your pain. I turned to Clyde and calmly asked how much the broken plate cost. He scoffed, muttering about policy. I took out my wallet anyway and placed more than enough cash on the counter. Then I asked the room if anyone else thought firing someone on Christmas for an accident was fair. One by one, people avoided eye contact. But then something unexpected happened. An elderly woman from the corner booth stood and said it wasn't right. A father holding his daughter nodded in agreement. A few customers began speaking up. The atmosphere shifted. Clyde's confidence faltered. Maren stood frozen, caught between humiliation and hope. I asked her what she had planned for Christmas after work. She hesitated before admitting she was supposed to visit her mother at the hospital after her shift. Her mom had been recovering from surgery. Maren had picked up extra hours to cover medical bills. This job wasn't just income. It was survival. The weight of that truth settled over the diner like fresh snow. I asked Clyde if he truly wanted to be remembered as the man who fired a hardworking young woman on Christmas while her mother lay in a hospital bed. He didn't answer immediately. Pride wrestled with perception in his expression. Finally, perhaps sensing the room turning against him, he muttered that she could keep her job, but she needed to be more careful. It wasn't a grand apology. It wasn't justice in its purest form. But it was something. Marin stood there, stunned. The customers slowly returned to their seats, conversations resuming with a softer tone. Christmas music continued playing as if nothing monumental had happened. But something had shifted in the air. She thanked me quietly, her voice steadier now. I told her she didn't owe me thanks. Everyone deserves dignity, especially on a day meant to celebrate compassion. Before I left, I paid my bill and added a tip far larger than usual. Not out of charity, but respect. As I stepped outside into the golden afternoon light, I saw her through the window, moving with renewed purpose. There was still pressure, still work, but there was also something else in her posture. Strength. Validation. 3 weeks later, I returned to the diner. Marin was still there, but this time, she wasn't wearing the standard uniform. She wore a small gold pin that read, "Shift Lead." Clyde stayed mostly behind the counter. The energy of the place felt different, less tense. She told me that night had changed more than just her employment status. The customers who spoke up had left positive reviews mentioning her dedication. The diner's reputation had actually improved because of the incident. Clyde had been forced to reconsider how he treated his staff. And Marin, who once believed she simply had to endure mistreatment to survive, began taking night classes in business management. She said she wanted to run her own place someday. Somewhere kindness wasn't optional. Listening to her, I realized something profound. We often underestimate how much our voice matters. We assume someone else will step in. We convince ourselves it's not our place. But sometimes, all it takes is one person refusing to look away. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Let others be reminded that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply stands up. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment the word, kindness, if you believe every worker deserves respect, no matter the day or circumstance. That Christmas afternoon wasn't about broken plates or diner politics. It was about a young woman who nearly lost her livelihood in the quiet decision of a stranger to say she was worth more. The world didn't change overnight. But for Marin, it shifted just enough to light a path forward. Sometimes, that's all it takes.